And welcome everyone to the debut episode of Jacked Up and Being Frank. My name is Frank Aranio, and I am joined by my co-host Jack Doblanowitz. Jack, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
We're excited. We're starting out with our show, Jacked Up and Being Frank. We're talking sports. We are going to be bantering back and forth about what's going on in pro sports. We'll talk some college sports along the way as well. Today, we're going to be focusing on Major League Baseball and the National Football League as you have the actually second to last day of the regular season in MLB, as there's a scheduled doubleheader with the Mets and Braves tomorrow. But we're keeping an eye on those baseball games. We got the NFL going on live in progress, and we're going to talk about the big Karl Anthony Towns trade, the Knicks and Timberwolves trade that took place on Friday. So a lot going on. We're really excited to start up our podcast here. So Jack, you want to jump in and tell the audience about what we're going to be looking to do here on our show?
I mean, just talk basketball as I do on my Nick and Time podcast, talk basketball, but more we'll do around the league. But we're also, as we're watching the football game with you, I mean, we have everything, the fancy teams, everything. Like, it's going to be Sunday football, just talking while the game's on type stuff. We're not going to commentate it, but the game's going to be on. And if, like, Jamar Chase, for example, scores like a 90-yard touchdown, we're gonna say that. And it's just great to have interactions. But yeah, and the NBA is in full swing. I think October is usually my favorite kind of month because everything's going on. You know.
Yeah, it's arguably the best sports month. I guess October or March, maybe we'll have that debate at some point. But October is just great with the NFL, NBA is starting up, NHL too for hockey fans. We'll talk some hockey at some point too. And then Major League Baseball postseason is approaching as well. So again, we're doing a format here where we're going to talk about the major headlines of the day. This Karl Anthony Towns trade was just a major gift as we're doing our first episode, which was planned for today, and then that trade broke on Friday.
And also, Mitch is asking out. Mitch just asked out of the Knicks, or they're like shopping him around. So it's also like the Knicks just started going crazy as we just started. Like Leon Rose just hit a button. It's like he just hit like a button, exploded, and he just went out and got Karl Anthony Towns, and he just is going to now, like, it's great timing for them.
Yeah, and our show will be a lot of NBA as we go forward and the regular season starts and we go on with the NBA season, as Jack has his own solo podcast called Nick of Time. He just started season 2. So the first episode of season 2 has been posted on YouTube. So please check that show out. Great first episode talking about the Karl Anthony Towns trade, breaking it down from the Knicks perspective, a little bit from the T-Wolves perspective. So check out Jack's podcast called Nick of Time. So we're looking right now at what's going on in the NFL. So the Jets are having a struggle today. They're down right now 7. Actually took the lead. They're up 9-7 against the Broncos at MetLife Stadium. A rainy day. Neither team doing anything offensively. Very ugly game. But the Jets right now with a 9-7 advantage with about 13.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Giants lost on Thursday night, 20-15 to the Dallas Cowboys. So the Giants dropped to 1-3. So Jack, I mean, the Giants, they got the win at Cleveland, good road win, but they stand at 1-3. Give us a little bit about that Thursday night game, winnable game. Where'd it go wrong for the Giants?
I think you have to, like, the biggest thing is how you get down the field. But I feel like teams nowadays, like, they get down the field, but then they don't score. So I feel like people need to realize, okay, getting down the field is nice, but when you're in that red zone, you got to be able to the good to great quarterbacks, what separates them is how they finish drives. And, Daniel Jones, below average quarterback, to great quarterback, he couldn't finish the drive. There's nothing that he could do or the wide receivers could do to finish the drive, and it kind of separates good to great teams. The great teams are usually the teams that score in the red zone a lot, who get the touchdowns, who don't settle for 3. Those are usually the great teams. So then you look at the Giants, and it's like, oh, they can get down, they get 3. I mean, it gives enough time for the kicker to kick 3, it gives enough room for the kicker to kick 3. But at the end of the day, touchdown is what wins championship. I mean, wins Super Bowls for teams.
Well, except that game the Giants played the Commanders, where the Commanders had 7 field goals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a total outlier. The Giants lose that game. They didn't have their kicker. They had to go for 2, so that was a mess. Where is this Giants franchise at right now? The Giants historically have been a good franchise, well-run, traditional NFL organization. They've won 4 Super Bowls. They've had success, but it's been a while now for the New York Giants, and their fans have always had a high level of confidence, not necessarily like a Yankees type of franchise, but confidence in their franchise. They've been a good franchise, won championships, but it's been a while for them. Like where is this franchise at, and how are Giants fans feeling right now, not only about this season, but about going forward, the future of the Big Blue football team?
I think it starts with you getting rid of Saquon Barkley. I know the injuries and stuff, and I think that's definitely the start of it, and that definitely shows you something of what the direction the Giants want to go in, is that, you know what? We're fine with letting somebody like Saquon go because we want to rebuild or we want to do something like that. We want to retool our team. I think that's kind of that's showing into what the Giants are trying to do. And yes, Daniel Jones, below average quarterback, but just hold down the roster is not complete. It is pretty good. I think this team is a pretty good team besides the quarterback, but I feel like wide receivers dropped some balls in that game. Like the team is not perfect. Like it's not a playoff team. But I just feel like everything right now for the Giants is not going well because it's not just because of the quarterback. I think that the defense gave us a chance, but I mean the run got stopped by the Cowboys, not even be able to run the ball. It's just been a struggle right now for the Giants. I think it's everybody has to take it on the chin for them.
It's particularly frustrating. I mean, I'm taking more of the big picture view, which you are as well. But I think with the Giants, it doesn't do much to get too much in a game right now. It's where is this thing going? Because they're not going to the playoffs this year. It's not happening. It's assessing the quarterback. I mean, they signed him to this huge contract. So, it's a tough spot there. And like you said, they have a lot of holes on the roster. And if you look back a couple of years, they had a really good season 2 years ago. They go to the playoffs. They win a playoff game. But then they got exposed against Philadelphia and just got blitzed in that divisional playoff game. But it was a good year. And then last year, obviously, was a rough go of it for the Giants. Jones got hurt. You had Tommy DeVito, which was exciting. I mean, they had a fun story. But in terms of the product on the field, I mean, the Giants were just a poor team last year. How about Brian Dable? Is he the right coach? I mean, is any of this his fault? I mean, he came in, great start. Everybody's like, this is the guy. They brought in this star coach in the making. Is any of this his fault? Or is it, you gotta get him the personnel to be able to win with?
So I was thinking, for the first, it had really been back and forth with me and Brian Dable. For the first, when the game ended, I'm like, okay, this coach Brian Dable really stinks. But when I looked at it, we kind of we dominated the possession, the time possession, without being able to run the ball. I think that is what you talk about coaching. When you can't run the ball, but you still dominate time possession, that is what offensive coaches do. That's what great offensive coaches do, and have their defense, keep them in games. That is what great offensive coaches do. I think he's squeezing as much of the orange out of Daniel Jones as he possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't hear a lot of talk about Dable. I don't hear him being blamed. And I'm not saying he is to blame. I just think it's good to take a look at things that don't seem to be talked about. Like a lot of teams, when they struggle, you hear a lot about the coach. I don't think you hear much about Dable. Yeah, coach and quarterback. You hear plenty about the quarterback of the Giants, and deservedly so. You don't hear much about the coach. And again, I'm not blaming him. I mean, the way they came out of the gate 2 years ago was very impressive. I like the way he carries himself. There's a lot of good things there, but I figure bring it up in the equation. Is he still the guy? And maybe we don't have the answer to that. I think if you go across town and look at what's going on with the Jets and talk about Robert Saleh, is he the guy? Can he really lead the Jets to the next level? I think that remains to be seen. And the Jets right now are in a struggle with the Denver Broncos in a game that I can't say it's a must win, but it's a game that you really can't lose if you're looking to be a legitimate contender this year. And I think beyond making the playoffs, which for the Jets would be a major thing because they haven't made it in 14 years. But the Jets are a team that have bigger plans than just making the playoffs, and losing to Denver today would not bode well for those plans.
I think Saleh and Brian Dable are a little bit different. I think Saleh is more like a defensive coach.
Well, that's true. Two different sides of the ball that their forte is, or their background.
I think that the way Brian Dable, you saw him get this Malik Neighbors, he's he's amazing. And we saw him out of college, LSU wide receiver. LSU wide receivers are usually great. We saw him out of college. I mean, it reminds me of another LSU receiver, an OBJ. I know I got to pump the brakes, but the way he's been playing right now and the way Brian Dable's been able to use him as getting himself a number one wide receiver. Imagine giving him a number one quarterback. Imagine giving him like a Cam Ward. I'm just throwing out quarterback ideas. Arch Manning, just something like that. We don't know if he'll declare. We don't know. We don't know about his college decision or whatever he's gonna do. But just imagine giving him a QB that is very, very serviceable. Yeah. What he can do, like he's done great things with Malik Neighbors and Wandale Robinson and everybody. But imagine you give him a very, very good QB, a very, very good young QB with high upside.
That's the name of the game in the NFL. You need the big-time quarterback. You really can't win at a high level. You can't win a championship without an elite quarterback. I mean, I can't say it's totally impossible. You've seen it in the past, but I think in today's NFL, you need that guy, and the Giants clearly don't have that guy. Very few teams do. I mean, how many teams have that guy that could take them to the Super Bowl, that could win in the Super Bowl? I mean, if you look again across town with the Jets do have that guy now. He's 40 years old, but Aaron Rodgers is still a guy. You see how he's playing out there. He's a guy that could lead you to a Super Bowl.
I think even like giving Brian Dable somebody like a Baker Mayfield, just somebody who's serviceable, who he can use, because I think he's an offensive mastermind. He's not one up there, but I think he could be a one because of the way he's been able to use Malik Neighbors with Daniel Jones. I feel like he's something like a very, very good offensive coach.
Jack, I tend to think he's not to blame. I mean, I just brought it up as a conversation topic because, again, I don't hear much talk about him. But I think anytime a team's struggling, it's reasonable to bring up the coach, the coaching. But I think the Giants are a case of it's not the coaching. You got to get the personnel. But the problem for Brian Dable is if, they're going to have a bad season this year, you don't see him turning around, and then what's next year? Like eventually you get fired because the team's not winning. So maybe Dable in his career, it's, the Giants aren't going to be the spot that he has big success. Maybe it's his next tenure somewhere else. I mean, you've seen that plenty. I mean, Belichick's the biggest example. Cleveland Browns didn't work out, and then the Patriots, he goes and wins 6 Super Bowls.
I think we'd open a whole new can of worms if we talk about the management right now for the Giants. They're the people to blame because they could have went out and got Jayden Daniels this season, and look what Jayden Daniels is doing. He looks like I'm gonna bump the brakes, but he looks like a Lamar. He looks like Lamar, and he looks like in that game. I forgot who it was against. It was like a Monday Night Football game. He was looking like a young Lamar with the way he was just read option. In fact, Brian Dable could have very well used that guy in his offense and made that guy into like one of the great QBs in this game.
Yeah. So again, the New York Giants. I'm just going. Let's give you an update on the Jets real quick. So they're down 10-9. They got the ball, 8:45 to go. So again, Jets got to find a way to just pull that game out. Anyway, that's a surviving advantage. That saying from the NCAA tournament, but that's the situation that the New York Jets are in. But back to the Giants, just pulling up the schedule. So they got the Seahawks on the road next week. I mean, that's going to be a tall task. So you're looking at 1-4. You're staring 1-4 in the face for Big Blue. Yeah, the Seahawks are 3-0. They have very interesting game tonight. We're not going to get into this game, but Seahawks and Lions, that'll be a really good one. With
got Jared Goff in fantasy. He's got a Jared Goff in fantasy. He's got to throw some dimes.
Yeah, so he could have a big game in the Dome tonight, but the Seattle Seahawks with a good start at 3-0. Again, the Giants have them coming up next. So again, the Giants they're staring 1-4 in the face. And I mean, what do you think? Giants probably like a 4-13 season this year?
Yeah.
What did you think before the year?
I was not that. I was optimistic. I feel like going into this season, I'm gonna be the one. No one else would probably be able to own up to this. But I thought, Daniel Jones, wide receiver 1, he could be something. Like he could be something. Like Malik Neighbors could definitely be used in a way where at least serviceable, at least Baker Mayfield level. Baker Mayfield's been great this season, but I guess I've been wrong. Like ever since the first game where he threw those 2 picks, I'm like, the way he was dropping back, it just didn't feel like the Daniel Jones whenever it was like I know he's never been like very good, but when they made the playoffs, he felt like he was dropping back, more loose. It looks like
You know what? I mean, despite the Giants being let's just put it, they're a poor NFL team. They're certainly a subpar team. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. But even having said that Washington game, very winnable.
Yeah.
You could say that they were unlucky because the kicker got hurt, but still very winnable game. The game the other night was a very winnable game. The Cowboys have struggled out of the gate. I mean, they won the first week against Cleveland.
If we talk about the Cowboys, I think I can go.
If we were doing a show in Dallas or the Dallas area, my God, there's so much to talk about with them. No, they're not getting it. People saying they're going to the Super, forget it. It's going to be the same old Cowboys. But that's a whole nother story. But the Giants, I mean, you could argue the Giants could be 3-1, but you know what? I don't think it's fair to argue because the Giants just aren't that good. Like, bad teams are going to lose games like the Washington game and the Dallas game. That's just what they are. So it's like, oh, they could have won this, they could have won that. You know what? When you're not good, you're not going to win those games.
Yeah, but Daniel Jones, I felt like left 14 points on that. I don't know if I put in my points. I feel like my notes, but Daniel Jones, I feel like left 14 points on that board. He could have there's a video. I know you're not like on like apps like that, but like there's Twitter where he beat a man. Malik Neighbors kind of juked out a man. He's wide open, but then Daniel Jones throws it so late, it's underthrown. So there's been points left on the board.
Yeah, but it's because the quarterback's not good enough.
Yes.
So the points are left on the board because the quarterback's not good enough. So
yes,
that's the thing with these arguments where it's, well, he didn't make the throw or whatever it is that didn't happen. It's like, well, it's not happening because of a lack of talent, a lack of coaching. Now, I'm not saying with the Giants it's the lack of coaching, but whatever the factors is, the reason those things are happening is because they're not a good team. And they're clearly not. So it's like, oh, they could be 3-1, but they're not 3-1. They're 1-3. And that's a product of who they are. Bill Parcells said it a long time ago. You are what your record shows you are. And I'd say in most cases, that's pretty much true. They're 1-3 for a reason. They pulled that game out against the Browns. Browns are supposed to be good, but they've struggled early on. So for the New York Giants, it looks like it's going to be an uphill climb.
I don't understand why people think we could have won that Cowboys game. If you can't score a touchdown, you can't win a game. I know people have won by kicking field goals, but you can't bet on. You can't. Brian Dable can't go in that game.
The Commanders week 2 against the Giants. That's a total outlier. There wasn't like the first time it ever happened.
Their head coach could their head coach definitely didn't go in that game and be like, we can kick as many field goals as we want because we're going to win this game. No, that's not.
Was that the first time in NFL history that happened? It was something extremely historic where 7 field goals won a game. So why don't we talk a little about the Jets? Maybe we could flick on CBS to see the end of that game. You're able to do that with that remote? Because the Jets right now are 10-9. I think it's worth us tuning into that. I see 4th and 8 for the Jets on basically at midfield with 4:35 left in the game. What a disastrous loss this would be. So the Jets, they go to San Francisco as we're tuned into the game here. Ooh, Rodgers gets slammed to the ground. Is that a fumble? We're just looking at a replay here. Ooh, that's close.
Let me see the context of this. I might go to an app where I can see the context of this.
But anyway, so we get a close play there. Not sure if it's a fumble or not. It says Denver ball 1st and 10. So anyway, the Jets went to San Francisco Monday Night Football week 1, and they got dominated. I don't think the final score was even indicative of how dominant San Francisco was in that game. The Jets just got shredded. And then the Jets said they had a struggle in Tennessee, but they won the game. Road game, NFL. You could always, you could always lose those type of games. Tennessee's not a good team, but they got the job done there. And then they took care of the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots are not good either. Patriots started the season pretty well. They had that game with Seattle. They lost in overtime. They beat the Bengals, but the Bengals are 0-3. Really struggling. But anyway, the Patriots are not a good team. But to the Jets' credit, Thursday Night Football last week, they dominated the game 24-3. The defense was stout. The offense looked sharp. But now the Jets.
Rodgers looked sharp. I think
Rodgers looked sharp, but today has been a very ugly affair at MetLife Stadium. And again, it's in progress right now, and it feels like a lot is on the line in these last 3.5 minutes in that game. I get to me the Jets.
I'm sorry that the Falcons game is on, but it's like 23 seconds left.
I see.
Yes.
This Falcons game is coming down the wire. Saints and Falcons. So 24-23 New Orleans. Falcons have the ball. They're looking to march down for a game-winning field goal. But what do you think of the Jets, Jack? I'm a Jets fan. I can see I'm wearing my Jets stuff today.
Yeah.
And just for the show, my approach to the show, I'm not eventually we'll reveal our fandom for each sports. Jack's a huge Knicks guy, huge basketball guy. I'm a Knicks fan too. I'm not as big a fan as Jack is. I was a diehard growing up. Loved the Knicks, the Ewing days, and all, that era, the '90s. So we're both on the same page with the Knicks. So we'll reveal to you who our teams are as we go. The New York Jets. It's you don't want to hold history against any team too much, but I don't feel that the Jets culture has changed much. It always starts from the top with the owner, and how much could you really evaluate with ownership? But you see what the Jets have been under Woody Johnson. It's largely been a disaster. They had those 2 AFC Championship games with Rex Ryan, and they haven't been in the playoffs since 2010. It's a losing franchise, and I think sometimes it's until you change ownership, you're never gonna really change the culture. Could you go on a run? Could you get the right coach, which I don't think they have the right coach right now? Could you get the right quarterback? I think they do have the right quarterback, but he is 40. I just don't think it's there. Like, could the Jets make the playoffs? I think they could make the playoffs, but I'm still of that mindset. And maybe it's unfair to this current team. It is a talented roster.
Very talented.
There's talent on both sides of the football. I'd say more so, the defense and the offense, but the offenses, there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah, I was going to say,
so
you got Wilson, you got Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, and, you got very good defense. But, I just feel like you build around, a 40-year-old quarterback. Something just doesn't feel right about that as the Falcons win. Something just doesn't feel right about that. Like, building around a 40-year-old quarterback.
58-yard field goal winner for Atlanta. So they go to 2-2. And the Saints dropped to 2-2. So Atlanta 26-24. Man, 58 yards. These guys these days hit these field goals like they're nothing. It is indoors at the Dome in Atlanta, but what a kick there. So back to the Jets.
Just something doesn't feel right about building around. There's nothing new. I feel like the Jets to fit the timeline. I feel like I know Garrett Wilson learning from Aaron Rodgers is great. But I definitely feel like you could have went younger with that quarterback. I know. And then, with all the Rodgers stuff.
But who are you going to have in that position? Obviously, by far the most important position in the National Football League. Who are you going to have there that could take you to the Super Bowl? So the Jets are in this weird spot. It's like they haven't been in the playoffs in so long. So just to get to the playoffs would be an accomplishment. And that's kind of my mindset. I'm like, look, let's get to the playoffs first. But at the same time, you've brought in Aaron Rodgers because they're like, okay,
we need to win a Super Bowl.
We have this young talent. We built up the talent. Let's get this future Hall of Famer, first ballot, 4-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. Let's get him in here and try to make it work where you have this talented roster, a lot of it young, have him be the guy that leads them to the promised land. You could put this together now. Let's try to win now. It's been so long for this franchise, but they haven't even made the playoffs since 2010. So it's a weird dynamic to me. Usually with a roster like this, you build it along.
It's hard to evaluate because they have so many talented guys, but then they come up short in games like this. Well, against the Denver Broncos, and it's like, okay, you have Breece Hall, you have Aaron Rodgers, you have Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are two of my favorite players in the league. They're very, very talented young players who I think should beat a team like the Broncos. But it's really hard to analyze this team right now.
It's one thing to have talent.
Yes.
There's a difference between having
a
good collection of talent and a good team. Can they put this together and be a good team? Let's not talk about great team. Could they be a good team? And I'm still very skeptical of that. And look, if they go on, I think the Jets got the ball back here. So maybe they go and win this game today. But you know what? To struggle, I know it's raining, but I don't want to hear it's raining. It's not cold out. Like you could still move the football on a day like this.
Pound it with Brees Hall, man. Come on.
So the Jets.
Fancy.
What happened?
Brees Hall, man.
I don't know what happened here. We didn't see what happened.
I think
the
Jets.
The Jets have the ball at the
Yeah.
45. Denver was driving, so I don't know if there's a turnover. Again, we're talking as the game's going on. So the Jets actually have a chance to go down and win this game. But regardless if they win this game or not.
They punted it away. They kind of went like 3 and out, punted it away, which typical.
Okay.
Punted away, 3 and out.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on this game. But the Jets, again, there's a difference between having the talent, having good talent, and having a good team. And I don't know that they're a good team. And I don't know if they're going to be a good team because you have the veteran quarterback, but I don't like the dynamic of him running the team. To me, the head coach should always be running the team.
That's what I kind of meant about the building around a 40-year-old quarterback and like him trying to run this team. Like, let's relax.
I don't think
Brees Hall could be this guy. Like Brees Hall could be that guy, but I feel like you're really catering this team around like Aaron Rodgers. Like, let's give whatever he wants. Like, look at like.
I don't mind him having say and having an influence, but to me, and look, we're not there every day. We're not in Florham Park at the training facility.
Mm-hmm.
We're not there at MetLife Stadium in the locker room behind the scenes. But from all indications, he has a lot of sway, and Saleh's still there, and Hackett's still there. I just don't think it works to give the quarterback, whoever it is, that much power. Even in New England, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback ever, Bill Belichick was head coach. Bill Belichick ran the organization. Brady had say, but it was Belichick's show, and I think that's the way to do it. I just, you can say that's too traditional of approach, but I mean, why have a head coach if the head coach really isn't the guy running the show? So to me, it's those dynamics, that get in the way of the Jets putting this together and reaching their max potential. They have good talent, but I'm skeptical that they're actually a good team.
Yeah, I think you can look at like all the Super Bowl champions, and like you look at the Andy Reids, you look at the Bill Belichicks, like you have your Kyle Shanahan's, even though I don't think he won, but you look at your Sean McVays. Those are very great coaches, and you know what? They won Super Bowls, and it's the Sean McVays of the world. He was able to have his master plan with all these great players.
We just watched Rodgers just get demolished on a sack. What is, this is live commentary. I mean, this is the Jets, Jack. This is going to be the jacked up part of the show. So show title, just so people know. So jacked up, we got Jack. Being Frank, we got Frank. So Jack's going to bring most of the fire, I think, but there's going to be times that I do, which in a moment could happen. So we got the jacked up part of it. You're going to get passion. You're going to get enthusiasm in this show. And being frank, we're going to be honest. We're going to be direct. We're going to give you our takes. We're going to also be open-minded. When we're wrong, we'll admit we're wrong.
We're being frank. The Jets stink right now.
I don't know if they stink, but they're not. They stunk today.
Zach Wilson.
But they're not a good team. They're just. This is typical Jets. And I know that there's people that say, well, it's an old take. It's a tired old take, same old Jets. Like you could just keep saying that. But I'm not talking about, what they did in 1982, or something. It's just, this is what the Jets franchise is right now. It's not a sound franchise. It's not a well-run franchise. They have a chaotic structure. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's talent enough. Talent alone is not enough. I mean, that's obvious in sports. It's not just talent. Yes, you need talent. If you don't have talent, you're not going to be good. But you got to be able to put that talent together. And I don't see that happening for the Jets. And this game, I texted a few of my friends a little after 1:00. As soon as it started the way it did, as ugly as it did, I said, this has a typical Jets loss written all over it. And they're 142 away from that being the situation today.
I don't think that's like, that could be like the thing. I think your team having that typical thing, I think your team could still be like Knicks, it's always been the typical Knicks. So they choke leads, you know. But now look at the Knicks now. I feel like it's not like a thing that you can put like hold them back.
Well, I guess that goes against my ownership take because the Knicks still have James Dolan as the owner. But honestly, like James Dolan is not as.
Supposed to empty his pockets.
I might be walking this back, but is James Dolan as bad as Woody Johnson? I know James Dolan, like he seems like a jerk. He seems like it. We don't know the guy personally, but he's some of the things he's done. He doesn't seem like a great guy. But who knows? I don't want to judge the guy. I don't know him personally.
As a guy, I don't know if I want to even talk with that. But I feel like him being hands off now and letting Leon Rose run the ship and just having his hands like off, being like, okay, I'll pay whatever money you have. Pay Cat $60 million. I'll do whatever you got. But you promised me this is an NBA championship roster. I'll put my hands up. And that's what James Dolan's been doing. It's worked very well.
Well, Woody Johnson, and are we going with the rule you can't cross sports? That was well, we haven't discussed that yet. But we're going to cross some sports. There's some shows that say don't cross sports, but I think there's room for it. So anyway, so Dolan is hands off with the Knicks now. He's always been hands off with the Rangers, and the Rangers are pretty much always good. So it's worked with the Rangers. They haven't won a cup in 30 years, but he stays out of the way of the operation of the Rangers, and it works pretty well. Woody Johnson stays out of the way with the Jets. He's not hands on. It's just he doesn't get the right people in place. So, I don't think Robert Saleh's the guy. I just haven't seen any evidence that he is to this point. As the Broncos line up for a field goal. This is kind of that is no good.
Will Lutz.
So the Broncos went for a 50-yard field goal there. I don't know if that's
3-0 Mets, by the way. Lindor comes in with a single, RBI single.
What inning is the Mets game in?
It is in the it is in I don't even know, probably like third.
So as we talked, the Jets are still alive today. I mean, again, they might wind
They're definitely alive, but they have the ball again at kind of midfield.
They might wind up pulling this thing out, but I'm going to say
3-0 in the top fourth.
So the Mets so far in good shape in Milwaukee today. They really need a win as they're in competition with the Braves and the Diamondbacks for 2 wild card spots. It's 3 teams for 2 spots in the National League. But back to the Jets, Jack, again, like whether they pull this out or not, it doesn't change my take on them. They just, to me, have not shown signs that certainly that they're going to go to some elite level this year. But I even question if they're going to be a good team for the long haul. I just don't think talent alone is enough. I think you have to be able to put it together. And
I think it's about building around. Oh my God, so many flags. I think it's about building around Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. I think it's about building around those type of players. That's what they got to recognize. Whenever Aaron Rodgers is gone, you still, to be fair, I'm kind of not jealous, definitely not jealous, but a little bit of envy that you guys have Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall because you can build around them. They're not.
The Jets are in a much better spot than the Giants.
They're not in that old. They're not in the old. That. They're very young. You could build around them, and they have and you can build around Sauce being the corner.
But then you have this window right now with a Hall of Fame
with Rodgers.
So how much longer is he going to play? So once he's gone, like what?
I guess
know the focus for the Jets. It's on this season, but it's not just on this season. So I'm kind of confused as to what the Jets are trying to do. They're trying to win now. They're trying to build for the future, which I understand you could do both at the same time. But again, not to beat a dead horse because we talked about it plenty. I don't think the way this thing is structured is conducive to them maximizing the talent they have. I think there's gonna be disappointments throughout this season. Maybe the talent gets them to the playoffs. It might very well get them to the playoffs because they clearly have plenty of talent to be a playoff team. But I don't see them contending with the Kansas City Chiefs to win the AFC. I mean, it stops right there. It's Kansas City. I mean, they're primed to three-peat. So it's could you go and beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs? I can't see the Jets doing that.
Yeah, I think after Rodgers, you have to look at now focusing on your young guys. Even if you don't get it done, you're like, okay, we didn't get it yet done. Now let's use that as something to build on. Let's be like, okay, let's not force in an old guy. Let's go build around these young guys, and let's make Jets football very fun. Let's make people who want to come to the game like have fun and young and energized experience with our youth, and have them come to the and have them and like kind of have them come to the game for something. Because this 10-9 game in the rain with kind of like boring game, like there's no like kind of excitement. Let's get some incitement, and let's get some excitement for this Jets fan. Let's try to get a playoff game. Let's try to win a playoff game, and let's make these fans feel good about the youth that we have. I think that's the way they got to run.
Yeah, well, looking at it that way, look, if they wind up having a good regular season, go to the playoffs, I think you gotta, as we watch this play here. So looks like in the Jets game, 4th down and 6, 51 seconds to go. And the Jets will be lining up for a field goal to
Bit long one.
to try to win the game.
It's a long.
I mean, the game's not over if the Jets make it. Denver has one timeout.
Bo Nix is looking like terrible. I don't know how you're losing to Bo Nix. Bo Nix is really bad.
Rodgers limping off the field a little bit. I think he'll be all right, but a little limp there. Rodgers 24-42, 225 today. Yeah, so the Jets are going to be lining up for a huge moment in the Jets season right here as Zerline is going to kick from 50.
50.
And he misses it. So the Jets are going to lose today. Oh, man. What that's the Jets. That's the Jets. That's the Jets. And you know what? Zerline's a good kicker.
Correct the leg.
He's been a good kicker, but you know what? You're going to miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a makeable kick. Certainly a makeable kick, but it shouldn't come down to that. It just shouldn't come down to that. That's just the Jets. It's cliche, but it's the same old Jets. And Jack, we're doing live sports talk here. Anybody who believes in the Jets, I don't know what you're looking at.
So let's look at Bo Nix stats today. Let's look at the QB that the Jets lost to. 60 yards, 1 touchdown, 67 passer rating, 48 completion percentage.
60 yards.
So
what is it? 40? 41?
This is who the Jets lost to today. This is his stats. This is too small, but so the Jets lost today. 48 completion percentage, 60 yards, 1 touchdown. Like,
what's the excuse for this?
Rainy day. I don't know, but you got to play through it. You have a great running back.
I don't want to hear, the defense. How many times did the Jets? The defense played great and they lost. You play, Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. You didn't win the game. You didn't win a game at home against a bad team. The Denver Broncos are a bad football team.
Yeah.
You lost to them at home today. That's just the Jets.
And you lost to a guy who has 60 yards passing.
60 yards passing, you lost a football game.
No, 60 yards passing, the guy won the football game. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. 60 yards passing by the opponent and the Jets lost to that. That's just inexcusable. It doesn't even matter how you break the game down. It's just that result right there. 10-9 at home against Denver. It's just pathetic. But that's the Jets. Let's move on though, because they're not going anywhere. Giants aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Could be a long year in New York for football. But it's going to be an exciting year at Madison Square Garden.
Not in Barclays Center. Definitely not there.
No. Who wants to go to that place? Unless Bruce Springsteen's playing, I go see him there. But Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. You got the New York Rangers, but we're not going to talk about them today. The New York Knickerbockers. Jack, take it away. Just wow.
I mean, wow is right. I thought it was a fake account. I mean, I didn't think that 3 days in the training camp, a move would be made. Like, even a small move. But getting Cat out of nowhere, I mean, you had to think, like, this was a move that the Knicks wanted to make for the last, decade. Getting someone like Cat from the New Jersey area, World Wide West, and Rosas and everybody has this, Timberwolves connection. Rosas, Timberwolves connection. Wild West is this, Cat connection. You wanted Cat. You also wanted Thibs, and everybody Thibs played with Cat. There's a lot of connections, and I feel like this has been a decade thing. But yeah, it's really weird that like I've been so excited. Let's see Randall play this season. Let's go. I cannot wait to see number 30 get back in the corner and prove these doubters wrong that he can, and see how his shoulder's doing, and have him run with OG, have him run with Mikhail, have him run with Jalen, see what he can do. But just like a snap of our fingers, Cat's in the team. DiVincenzo, see if DiVincenzo can come off the bench, but he didn't want the role. But
So I know you like the trade. I would think almost every Knicks fan does. I mean,
no, I think it's half and half. Actually,
really, you think?
I think people are like Dante. Like, why?
I mean, you're out there on social media. I will check it. I don't have accounts, but I'll check it to see what's going on. So I'm sort of in the loop. But what's out there right now? You're seeing 50-50 in terms of how Knicks fans feel about it?
I'm seeing about 50-50 because remember Dante DiVincenzo. Remember what he did for the Knicks. And just his fire for New York and just the way he kind of invoked New York into his veins. It was just New York was in his veins. And it's hard to see that guy go. And the way he was shooting, he's probably one of the best shooters I've watched play for the Knicks. Probably the best shooter I've watched play for the Knicks. Let's be honest. I mean, Fournier, him, I mean, best shooter I ever watched play for the Knicks, but you have to make sacrifices if you think that Cat's really a better player than Randall. But some people really think that Randall is not like the gap between Randall and Cat are not that big. I don't really know where Cat is as a basketball player right now. But I have to say that like maybe Randall's here and Cat's here. But some people are really saying they're even. I don't know. And if they're even, then why would you throw in Dante? And why would you throw in a first?
Karl-Anthony Towns and Julius Randle are even players?
Yeah, I mean,
how's that?
3-time All-NBA player, 4-time All-NBA player is Julius Randle. I mean, I don't know though, but I think people really think that like they're even. I think the fit. I think when you look at the fit, when you really break it down, the fit is great. The fit is amazing, and I think the Knicks have gone for fit when they went for OG, and now they've gone for fit when they went out and got Cat. I don't think Julius fit with this roster.
So what is the top thing that Karl-Anthony Towns? I can't call him Cat. I'm not big into the nicknames. I feel that's for you young people. Cat, Tibbs, Towns, Thibodeau. Anyway, what is the main thing that Towns brings to the table?
Well, let's look at a playoff series. What do you have to have going to playoff series? Versatility. You can play Cat the 5, you can play Cat at the 4, and you have them stretched out. You can do a lot of stuff with Cat. You can run whatever lineup you want with Cat. You can run at the 5, 4, as I keep saying. Like, there's a lot of versatility with Karl-Anthony Towns that you didn't have with Julius Randle. With him being a stretch big, respected from 3-point range, having 5 guys, you can spread 5 guys out. You can have Jalen drive, and
I'm throwing this out there to you. I've heard a lot about Towns's 3-point shooting ability. How
one of the best 3-point shooting big of all time.
In the modern NBA, because it's so 3-point heavy, how much does it help the Knicks to add another 3-point shooter? I mean, is it just redundancy, or do the Knicks need that 3-point shooter?
Well, look at what Celtics did when they changed from Robert Williams to KP. I know Robert Williams got them to the finals, but that got them over the hump. Getting themselves a 3-point shooter that has to be respected outside, and KP, Karl-Anthony Towns way better than KP in my opinion, but you get a KP type player, Kristaps Porzingis, your team goes from this to this because you get yourself a shooter that really.
But are the Knicks worse in certain areas because of this trade?
Bench definitely, but I think.
Okay, so you lose some depth.
Yes.
It is a superstar-driven league. But what in terms of the aspect, like not just bench, but like other aspects of the game, is there anything else where after this trade they're worse? Any areas of the game where they're worse because of the trade?
I think it was always going to be Jaden Reed. I was always going to think like the interior defense, but that was going to be Mitch whenever he comes back. But if you start Cat the 5 when Mitch comes back, is the interior defense worse? But you still have OG at the 4. Like you still have one of the best defenders in this game, in the basketball at the 4. So I don't know.
So Randall last year, I mean, he had an injury, so he's out for a lot of the
Yeah.
year. But he averaged 24 points a game, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. The year before, he played 77 games, 25 points a game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, it's a lot to lose.
Yeah, let me. I'm gonna try to say this in the contract perspective. He was rehabbing his shoulder, and they couldn't get a contract done. So boom, can't get a contract done. You got to move him. And Cat was on the board. I think that's kind of the contract type of stuff with it. Is that Julius Randle's going to expire? Let's get somebody who's under contract for the next 4 or 5 years that can go with the core, and that's Cat. Without having to, go like back and forth about contracts with Randle, we can just go out and get Cat. I think that was a money type of aspect in that, is that Randle's expiring, and then also that, the Minnesota Timberwolves need an expiring player right now.
Yeah, so there's the financial aspect of it, the contract statuses, all of that. So that factors in. It's not just what goes on in the court. I guess I'm just focusing more on the on-court stuff. But you're right. I mean, you can't take out of the equation.
I think the biggest thing the Wolves made this trade is because of money. I think the biggest reason the Wolves.
So there was a fit here.
Yeah.
But both teams, both franchises got something. I mean, let's put it on the other side. Minnesota. How are their fans feeling about this trade?
I think some fans are feeling like they have this emotional attachment. Everybody with talent's been through a lot with him. Like first overall pick, third.
But once they get beyond that,
yes,
the basketball part of it.
Yeah.
You want to throw in the financial part. How are Wolves fans feeling about it once they can get beyond the attachment to Karl Towns?
Why do we make this trade when we just went to the Western Conference Finals? Why did we do this? Why did we break up the center duo? And why did we break up the duo in Cat and Anthony Edwards? Why? We were just there. We kind of just found a patch in the game of Jokic. We just kind of stopped them, and we just break that up. Like, I don't understand that. That's where the Minnesota Timberwolves are kind of saying, like, we don't really understand that. Why would we do that?
Yeah.
But the owner didn't want to spend that much money, and it's money aspects and have to get expiring and Randle, and you also get yourself. I mean, look at DiVincenzo's contract. His contract's amazing for the Knicks. His contract's great, and you get him. It's just money aspect for them. They kind of need it, and right now, they're trying to bet on, is Randle the even player with Karl-Anthony Towns? Are they even? You're not getting yourself a very, very terrible play. Like, you're not getting yourself awful. This is a 4-time All-NBA player we're talking about. You get back in this trade. It's not like you're.
I mean, he averaged 25, 10, and 4 2 years ago when he played basically the whole season. And even last year was hurt a lot of the year, but he was 24, 9, and 5. I mean, this is no slouch.
No, this is no.
So could the Timberwolves still be in the mix in the Western Conference?
I think so, but I think, like, if you go down the coaching, less of a matchup nightmare. Very less of a matchup nightmare. Where the shooting is less.
But they had depth.
DiVincenzo's depth. Definitely. I mean, I think they have a lot of depth. But I think less of a matchup nightmare with the starting five where you have Randle and Gobert. You used to be able to have, like, these two big centers who would cause problems. Two big guys who would both be centers, Cat and Gobert, who would cause problems for teams. But now it's like, are you really that much of a matchup nightmare? You have Randle and Gobert. It's like the Knicks again with Mitch and Robinson. I mean, not Mitch and Robinson and Randle.
So are the Knicks worse off defensively now?
I mean, if you want to, it depends on what you play. If you want Cat at the 5, I guess so. But I mean, I just think the Knicks now this season, if they want to run Cat to 5, you just got to keep everything in front of you. And I think the Knicks do a great job of that with the people they bring in. And OG, Mikal, I think those are the two best people keeping the ball in front of you.
How much does Karl-Anthony Towns move the needle for the Knicks?
Not that much at all. I don't think.
How many more wins do they?
3. I'm going to give you that right now. 3. But that's what the Knicks fans are saying. You got 3 extra wins. Okay, whoop-de-woo. But then you gave Dante DiVincenzo. Okay, great. You gave up a very good role player, and you only gained 3 wins. And you gave up your All-NBA player. Great. You got 3 wins, but it still doesn't move the needle. That's what the 50% of Knicks fans are saying.
Now, what does this contract mean, the Towns contract, for the Knicks going forward? Does that tie them up?
That definitely ties them up. I mean, he's getting paid. I think I can bring up the contract right now, but he's getting paid a lot more than Randall. We
He's got 4 more years on it.
4 more years. I mean, we're talking big time money. I mean, we're talking 2024, 25, $49 million, 2025, 26, $53 million, 2026, 27, $57 million, and then 27,
So this
28.
will tie up the Knicks
player
with
option
signing
with
free agents
$61 million.
going forward.
I don't think the Knicks are going to even look at free agents, even the Inga Cat, because their team's fine. It's just getting those bench
Well, I don't mean
players.
free agents for this upcoming year, but going forward,
Yeah.
I mean, they can make trades. So it seems to me like it's a trade where it's, from the Knicks' perspective, it's like you make it, but it's not one of those trades like, oh, like this moves the needle so much, and now all of a sudden the Knicks are just as good as Boston, or they're better than Boston. So where does this put the Knicks in terms of their status compared to the Boston Celtics? How much? You said 3 more wins, so it inches them a bit closer to the Celtics. But how far away are the Knicks from the Boston Celtics?
I think, you have a tier 2 team. Tier 2 teams, whenever an injury happens, they're going to pounce on it, because tier 2 teams like the Knicks that are in tier 2, where you have tier 1, the Celtics, tier 2 teams like the Knicks, the Sixers, the Bucks, they can win championships if something goes wrong with the Celtics. But I feel like what the Knicks did is definitely they tried to match up the Celtics.
The Celtics right now are the only tier 1 team.
Yes,
so,
in the East.
So right now in the NBA, is there one in the West? The Nuggets?
I think you have to share the Nuggets up.
Okay, so you put the Nuggets in the same category as...
No, I put the Celtics in tier 1 of the NBA. You know what? Yeah, because that's like, I feel like...
So you keep the Nuggets in tier 2 with the Knicks, Bucks. Okay, so there's one tier 1 team. So the Celtics right now have the potential to be a dynasty. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So what's the argument? If you want to, you're saying it's 50-50 with Knicks fans. And we've been talking about it, but like if you had to give it 30 seconds or less, why this trade, not that you're saying it's not going to work out, but why this trade won't work out for the Knicks. What's the 30 seconds or less short version of that?
You get down to a regular season game, random regular season game, and injuries come and happen. Like, let's knock on wood. Injuries happen, and you're starting Deuce McBride. You're starting, and then you get into a bench situation where Deuce McBride, Tyler Kolek, just random players are on the floor, and then you lose to a team that has a better bench because you gave it to DiVincenzo, and then you're looking like we lose the Celtics. So what do you do? Because you kind of didn't move the needle at all. So I think that's the 30 kind of why. If you went and lost the Celtics,
does the bench getting thinner not matter as much in the playoffs? In the playoffs, you shorten your rotation. Would you say you don't have a concern because the playoffs obviously are much more important?
Thibodeau's going to play in 48 though. Anyway.
Yeah, so it could be more of a problem in the regular season where you're trying to get through the grind of the regular season and you want depth for that. But in the playoffs, the shortening of the bench, would you say it doesn't matter much or doesn't matter much at all because they'll you shorten your bench in the playoffs?
Well, when and if injuries happen, you got to have bench players. Those guys.
You're right. So you're not guaranteed to be healthy going to playoffs. And the Knicks weren't last year, and then they had injuries in the playoffs, and then ultimately.
And now they have the luxury of depth and DiVincenzo, Hart, all that depth, McBride, but now they don't really have that luxury anymore. They have Deuce, they have Kolek, they have, Mitchell Robinson, but Pressure Chua, and that's kind of their depth right now.
In a simplistic analysis of this, I look at the Knicks situation as they're getting there. They're very good, but they're clearly not as good as the Celtics. No one is. The Knicks are tier 2, like you said. But for the Knicks to get from tier 2 into tier 1, not necessarily that they're better than the Celtics or even equal, but you put them in that same tier where it's like they could beat the Boston Celtics in a best-of-7 playoff series. I think in order to get to that, you need to bring in a superstar. Is Karl Anthony Towns that superstar? Or is he really good but just below that level of player.
I think you have your superstar, Jalen Brunson. You surround him with a star, and you also have, arguably another star. I think we're stars loose, but like star in Mikal Bridges, and like Mikal Bridges could definitely be a star. And you got OG Anunoby, one of the best, probably top 3 best defender in basketball. And I just feel like the Knicks are now, they have those star players. I think now is depth. If you can go out and get.
So do you classify Jalen Brunson as a superstar?
Yep, definitely.
Is Karl Anthony Towns a superstar?
Nope.
So that's what I question. How much did he move the needle just for this season? How much did he move the needle? And then you do have the long-term aspect. I mean, how he ties the Knicks up with his contract going forward. So I think there is an argument against this trade. Now, my assessment of it, I say, you know what? It was worth making the trade. But I think it's very possible you look back at this trade and say, oh, it didn't work out for the Knicks. And for the Timberwolves, again, their fans, the emotional aspect, they lose Towns. You're like, oh.
Same with Randall. Randall bring the Knicks kind of out of nowhere. He bring the Knicks like out of like purgatory right now. I think that's what he did. He brought the Knicks out of purgatory with them being like, this mid team, and he brought them and got them to the playoffs against the Hawks. Then he went and they lost. They didn't make the playoffs next season. Then they signed Brunson, and all the stones follow. And like all the Jenga blocks fell, kind of, or dominoes fell after Randall brought us to the playoffs against the Hawks.
Yeah, you're losing a guy who's been really important to the franchise the last few years, and DiVincenzo
made the biggest.
It sounds like
biggest shot of I think I've seen in my life. And when he hit that shot against the 76ers, or whatever, there's a foul or not, big freaking shot. Yeah. One of the biggest shots I think in Knicks history. Yeah. He made. Is that fair? Fair to say? DiVincenzo's shot in the playoffs, one of the biggest shots in Knicks history against the 76ers.
Well, it was first round.
Well, yeah, but you were down by 5.
Recent Knicks history for sure.
I mean, I just think everything.
1970 and 1973, or even 94, 99 when they made the finals. But
I think it's recent the circumstance of them being down by 5 and then getting a 3 from Brunson that rattles in, and then getting a steal, and then DiVincenzo misses, rebound, back at DiVincenzo, bang, just all that stuff.
You're losing 2 guys that made a big impact, but you're bringing in a guy who, obviously is a big time player. Whatever you want to call him, a really good player, an elite player. Is he a superstar? You say no. I tend to agree with that. But there's obviously plus side to this trade, as you've articulated very well. What Towns brings to the table for the Knicks. A guy of his versatility. He can play in the perimeter, down low. Opens up the floor. I mean, so the benefits of having him on this team. But that's what a trade's all about. I mean, you make trades and both sides get something. So from the Timberwolves' perspective, again, I'm sure a lot of their fans are disappointed losing Towns, but they're bringing in these 2 guys. I mean, they should still be a very good team. I'm not exactly sure how that mix is going to work now, but it's going to be a very interesting trade to follow. So it's not just the talk now, right, as it's just happened. It broke, I think, less than 48 hours ago. We're going on 48 hours, but it's going to be very interesting to assess how this works out for both teams, not only this year, but how it works out for both of these teams in the future. So, Jack, any other Knicks thoughts right now as we get into the preseason? We are almost 3 weeks away, a little over 3 weeks away from the start of the regular season. The Knicks open in Boston against the Celtics. So that's October 22nd. So we're working our way towards there. So anything else you want to throw in about the Knicks right now?
This was out 19 hours ago. The New York Knicks are receiving and taking calls on center Mitchell Robinson, their longest tenured player. The situation said there's a likelihood of a situation say the likelihood of a deal is unknown, but the team seems willing to make another move after the blockbuster out of Karl Anthony Towns. And the deal isn't even – we haven't been on 48 hours. The deal's not finalized yet.
And it's unusual for a team to be willing and dealing right now, right? I mean, this is usually summer stuff. Yeah. Where you're getting this going on late September, heading into October. So what a gift it is. I mean, we're we're looking to talk NBA. Is you got the preseason, and you're not going to talk about the preseason games. Like nobody really cares about that. It doesn't mean much. But you can talk about the roster and preview the season. But my goodness, to get this Towns trade, and now you're talking Mitchell Robertson. Maybe there's other pieces that are moving. I mean, it's a fascinating time.
Well,
right now for the
isn't
New York
it weird
Knicks.
for a trade to not be finalized yet? It's been like 48 hours.
The Towns trade has not been finalized?
The Knicks Twitter hasn't even posted about it, which is the official thing. Like, they haven't even posted about it. The trade's not.
Well, is there anything out there that there might be a hang-up with the trade, or is it just really it's a formality? It just hasn't officially been finalized? Because that would be a whole other story if this trade.
It was a
didn't go
3-team trade. I mean,
3-team trade?
Yeah, I mean,
Who
I
else
think
was
that
involved?
it was because of money. Like the Charlotte Hornets just said, "Hey," the Charlotte Hornets said, "Hey, I just want to be included." They took like a scrub, like 2 scrubs.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know. Could it be like they're trying to add on like a Mitch move, and I don't know. It just.
I'm just wondering: is there a legitimate hang up there that could call off the trade, or it's going to happen? It just hasn't been finalized yet. I'm thinking that, but I don't know. You could take a look on the World Wide Web, look at social media, and see what's out there.
The expectation early this week, source tell. Which means the players involved not be at media camp as camps open up on Monday. Yeah, so the trade's probably going to be finalized earlier this week, which is weird.
Well, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get hung up for minor reasons, but it sounds like this one's going through. That we're not going to have a trade that is
unless somebody fails their physical, which that's a whole other thing. But
yeah, so there's so much to talk about, Jack. I mean, we'll continue to dissect this trade. We're going to be following it obviously throughout the season and see how it pans out, particularly for the Knicks. But we'll see with the Wolves, how their season goes, bringing in Randall and DiVincenzo. But regardless, I mean, it's going to be a really exciting year at the Garden with the Knicks. Again, the Rangers are in the mix as well there. So exciting times here in New York sports. You're going to have the Yankees in the postseason. We haven't talked Yankees today, but we will certainly be talking about them as they will start the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the American League. So they'll kick off the division series this upcoming Saturday. So we'll talk Yankees next week as they begin their postseason run. And then we'll see if the Mets are in the playoffs. They're winning right now. So we could be talking Mets next week. If the Mets do make the playoffs, they will have their wild card series before we're back next Sunday. So we'll see if the Mets are still alive in their season.
Is there a way that you don't have to play the 2 games in Atlanta? Because
yes.
I know you're talking
about Arizona is up big today. So if Arizona lost today and the Mets won, then they wouldn't play the doubleheader tomorrow.
But what's going to happen in doubleheader? So they'll probably have to, if everything stays, which probably will, 5-0 Mets. And the what's the score of the Diamondbacks again?
So Diamondbacks are up 7-1 on the Padres.
Yeah. So if everything stays the same, Diamondbacks win and Mets win, what happens now?
Well, the Braves are down 4-2. So if everything stood right now, the Braves, Mets, and Diamondbacks would all be tied. Now, Diamondbacks are done with the regular season. Mets and Braves have the doubleheader tomorrow starting at 1:10. Single admission doubleheader in Atlanta, making up those 2 games that were rained out this past Wednesday and Thursday. So if this all stands, they're all tied. It comes down to tomorrow. I mean, if tomorrow...
Do the Mets have to win 1 game or do they have to win both? What happens if they split
the Mets and the Braves would have to win 1 tomorrow. So if it stands as is right now, Arizona wins, New York wins, Atlanta loses. All 3 to be tied going into tomorrow. If this doubleheader is split between the Mets and the Braves, all 3 teams will have finished tied with identical records. The Mets and Braves win the tiebreaker, the head-to-head results. So if you have a split of the doubleheader tomorrow, the Mets and Braves will get into the playoffs. I believe the Braves would be the 2nd wild card. The Mets would be the 3rd wild card.
So then the Diamondbacks are not in the playoffs.
The Diamondbacks would be out. So if all 3 teams are tied going to tomorrow's doubleheader, the Diamondbacks will be rooting for one of the teams to sweep the doubleheader. So if the Braves sweep the doubleheader tomorrow, then the Mets would be out, the Diamondbacks would be in. If the Mets swept the doubleheader, the Braves would be out, the Diamondbacks would be in. So right now it's looking like it's lining up that tomorrow's doubleheader is going to be enormous.
Monday, which when would they play? I mean, it's school night, so I don't know. They play at 1:10.
1:10, yeah, and then the other game is to follow.
Wow, 1:10?
Well, they're doing that because the playoffs start Tuesday, so they don't want to go with a later doubleheader because then the Mets and Braves are getting done late, and then they have to play the next day in the playoffs. And you're going to have 4 playoff games on Tuesday.
How's the wild card work again? Is it 1 and in? Is it
best of 3? So all 4 wild card series start on Tuesday. The game 1s are Tuesday. The game 2s are Wednesday. The game 3s, if necessary, are Thursday. Friday's an off day for everyone. And then all 4 division series start next Saturday. So it looks like right now tomorrow's doubleheader is going to be enormous.
So if the Mets, would they play a wild card game, Mets versus Atlanta, if they split? Would the wild card game be Mets versus Atlanta?
No. So in the National League, so let's go through the postseason picture.
Yeah.
The National League, the Dodgers are the number 1 seed. They're going to have a bye. The Phillies are the number 2 seed. They have a bye as well. So they'll start playing next Saturday at home in the division series, which is best of 5. So then the Milwaukee Brewers won the Central Division. They're the number 3 seed. They have to play in the wild card round, though. So then the number 4 seed, San Diego Padres, they're locked in there. So the Brewers and the Padres will be hosting wild card series. So the wild card series are all at the stadium or ballpark of the higher seed. So Milwaukee will be home for their wild card series. San Diego will be home for their wild card series. And then you have 2 spots left open, the 5 and 6 seed, which right now Atlanta's the 5 and the Mets are the 6, with Arizona being right in the mix, but on the outside looking in.
What if the Atlanta and what's Diamondbacks get in? Who would be 5 and who would be 6? Like if one of the teams,
Atlanta and Arizona,
or
both
the Mets
got
in
in.
Arizona.
So if the Braves were out, the Mets would be the 5 and Arizona would be the 6. So the Mets would play San Diego in San Diego. Arizona would play at Milwaukee. If it's Atlanta and the Mets both making it, Atlanta would be the 5 and the Mets would be the 6. So the Mets would go to Atlanta tomorrow and return to Milwaukee to play the Brewers in the wild card series.
So if they split, they play the Brewers. Split, you play the Brewers.
Yes. Yeah, if they split, they will play the Milwaukee Brewers. If they win the doubleheader, the Mets, then they would play the San Diego Padres.
Who do you think is a better team? Like, I know, in your opinion.
I can't say that I've watched too much of Milwaukee or San Diego this year. I'd rather go to Milwaukee. It's less travel. I'd rather go to the middle of the country and have to go to the West Coast.
So this is split, play the Brewers, sweep, play the San Diego.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'd rather go to Milwaukee just because they're in Milwaukee now. They got to go to Atlanta. I'd rather have to go back to Milwaukee than have to go across the country and play the Padres the next day. Just the travel factor. I don't know if there's really much difference between Milwaukee and San Diego.
I mean, if you sweep, you're feeling good, you know. It doesn't. I feel like
Milwaukee's had a lot of postseason disappointment. I don't know if that really factors in. Like last year, they lost in the wild card series at home to Arizona. and then Arizona went to the World Series. I mean, not that San Diego's had any big postseason success, but San Diego a couple of years ago, they went to the National League Championship Series, and they beat the Mets. They beat the Mets in the wild card series at Citi Field in 3 games. Then they went and beat the Dodgers, who won 111 games, and then they lost to the Phillies. So I don't know if you want to factor that in at all, but I'd rather go play Milwaukee. But for the Mets, the big thing is just get in.
Just win. I mean, just win. If you have to win both, win.
Yeah, I mean, right now, just hold on today. They're up 5-0, and then got to go split a doubleheader. It looks like Arizona's going to win.
Well, I mean, you want to win both. Well, what's to play for if you win the first game? I guess just because you hate the Braves.
Say that again?
If you win the first game, I guess you just play the hate the Braves. Kinda.
Well, if you win the first game, then you can knock the Braves out in the second game.
Well, yeah.
But the second game, like the Mets win the first game, you lock up a playoff spot. You're going to rest guys because you start the postseason the next day. You may even have guys fly out after the first game,
like Lindor and. Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean, you're gonna play. Yeah, the second game, you're just gonna play as many reserves as you can. You're not gonna go for it to knock.
You may fly like your ace pitcher that's pitching on the mound for the game.
Well,
you don't know where you're flying. Well, you don't know when you're flying.
I don't know the Mets rotation offhand, but whoever they have lined up,
they're gonna be
to start. Well, here's the thing, though: they can't. They don't know where they're going ahead of time. Because it depends on the results tomorrow. So you can't even have people. You can't even have your starting pitcher for game 1 of the wild card series fly ahead because you don't.
Well, I guess you can just rush.
You don't know if you're going to Milwaukee or San Diego, but yeah, that's a problem. Like even if you win the first game, you still don't know who you'd be playing because if you win the second game, you're going to San Diego. But if you lose it, you're going to Milwaukee. So you really can't have anybody fly ahead. But you could rest guys. Forget about the flying ahead. You could rest guys game 2, which you should do. Like you shouldn't play your guys to try to knock it.
Flying ahead, I feel like it's crazy. Like
well, if you knew who you were playing for sure, then you could fly guys ahead. You could even say say they knew they were playing Milwaukee. Whoever's lined up to pitch on Tuesday,
like
in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs, okay, fly to Milwaukee, get yourself ready. But they don't know where they're going. They could be going to Milwaukee. They could go to San Diego.
How do you think ace works? Do you think they throw out their ace against Braves? Because I know Peterson pitched today, which he's not our ace. But
I mean, you got to go all in tomorrow. You can't worry about Tuesday, obviously.
Yeah, Mets don't even know who they're pitching tomorrow, which is probably right. Yeah, I mean you could definitely just pitch your ace tomorrow, but I don't know. The Mets bullpen is really good right now, so I don't feel like, even though they gave up some games, but I feel like right now the Mets bullpen is very good. So you gotta have a lot of guys who are under 3 ERA. So you could just.
It's such a crazy situation.
Yeah.
It's like you got a doubleheader on the Monday after the regular season is supposed to end, and everything's on the line. I mean, it's fascinating. It's going to be someday of baseball. I'm just looking at the.
Is that like the only game?
That's it, because today was supposed to be the end of the regular season. It's the last day that games are scheduled, but you do have this.
Is that going to be nationally televised? I mean, why not? Why not?
I don't know what they're like. It'll be on SNY. It'll be on the Braves network. I think it's.
I mean, why not?
Sports South, because those games are originally on those networks will be on there. I don't know if MLB Network's picking it up. It might, but I'm not sure nationally. Just looking here if the Braves there's because I'm looking at this one tweet from earlier today. There's all these different scenarios with the Braves, Mets, and D-backs. So if the Braves come back today, so let's check on their score. They're still down 4-2. But say Mets and D-backs win, they're both up big. But say the Braves come back, they're down 4-2, so they could. If the Braves come back, the Braves clinch a playoff spot. And then the Mets would need to split the doubleheader to get in. And the D-backs would need the Mets to lose both games. So if the Braves win, they're in.
Wouldn't that be better for the Mets? That'd probably be better for the Mets, right?
Yeah, it would be. You're right, because the Braves wouldn't have much incentive.
And you would just sit there. You wouldn't even have to go anywhere. Wait, no, you wouldn't. No, you would have to still play somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, if Atlanta wins, Mets win, Arizona wins, so Atlanta would still be one up on the Mets and the Diamondbacks. So the Mets,
And
the
Atlanta has
Braves
no
are in. I mean, if the Mets went and swept the doubleheader tomorrow, well, then they would leapfrog the Braves and be the 5 seed. The Braves would be the 6, but I don't think the Braves are gonna care much about that. I mean, I would think the Braves would rest their people tomorrow because they got to play the next day.
Well, and if they lose, then obviously not.
I'm saying that, yeah, if they win today, they're in. The Braves. I don't think the Braves.
And if you're in a wild card situation, just get ready. Just get ready for whatever team you're gonna play because you're gonna play a good team. So get everybody ready and like.
I don't think the Braves could go for it tomorrow. Like go all in to win a game to be the 5.
What's the
5 seed?
You're in. You just gotta.
But even if like the Braves are the 5 seed, they got to go to San Diego. So maybe they say, you know what, forget about tomorrow. I mean, if we win, we win. But if we lose both games, whatever, we'll be the 6, and we go to Milwaukee, and the Mets go to San Diego. So tomorrow, I don't like if the Braves win today. I don't think the Braves care at all tomorrow. So you're right. It's better for the Mets as things stand right now because the Mets are up big and Arizona's up big. It's better for the Mets if the Braves win today.
If the Braves win today, basically the Mets are in. If the Braves win today, basically the Mets are in. Unless something like unless the Mets do Mets stuff.
Right. You never know, but
and somehow lose like the position player or pitcher.
It would be better for the Mets if the Braves won.
Because you're basically in because you're playing like, it's like when the Giants were 6-10, they tried to go for the playoffs and they put out like Nate Sudfeld in the game or like a backup.
But again, as it stands right now, if the Braves lose, Mets win, D-backs win, all three are tied. So the D-backs would have to hope there's a sweep of the doubleheader tomorrow. But if there's a split, then both the Braves and Mets make it. So it's going to be fascinating. It already is. So, Jack, any final thoughts for today? We're gonna wrap up. We've had a great first episode. Again, everyone, this show we're pretty much going to do regularly on Sundays. It'll be a weekend show, a weekly show. We're going to talk about the major events, the major news stories, and the major games going on at any particular time in sports. Right now, it's a great time. NFL's in full swing. Baseball postseason is approaching. NBA season is upon us, and there's so much to talk about with the New York Knicks, with the big trade that's just occurred. So, Jack, any final thoughts before we close out this pilot episode?
No, this is just a lot of stuff to talk about, and this Mets situation is crazy, and Knicks are being crazy right now, and they're being good. Like, it's a lot of stuff is happening right now in New York sports, and the Jets just lost, and the Giants are losing. Like, but I mean, they might stink, but they're in full swing. I mean, you stink, but you're still in full swing. The season's still in full swing for both teams.
Yeah. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time in sports, as we talked about earlier in the show. It's arguably the most exciting time with the month of October coming up. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back next week with plenty of sports to talk. So this is Jacked Up and Being Frank for Jack Dublanowitz. I am Frank Aranio. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.